Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to The Adventures of Tintin. This is a donation reward for Random Internet Stranger. Thank you for donating and thank you for choosing this. So, I've seen some clips and stuff of this, but I don't remember anything. It's been a long time, and honestly, I've never seen this all the way through or anything, just a few clips here and there. I think this is based off a comic strip. I think I've read some of the comics. I think. But I can't remember either. Cause if so, it's been a long time since I've seen that stuff. But I don't really know pretty much anything about what this is about. I assume the main character's name is Tintin, and I assume that he goes on an adventure. I know what he looks like. I've even compared Mirio from My Hero Academia to him in terms of appearance. I've definitely seen him before. Like, that much is 100%. And I think there's like a old sea captain or something too, if I remember right. But again, I don't actually know the context behind anything. As for who's in this, I think, and I might be completely wrong, but I think Tintin is voiced by Ewan McGregor. I might be completely wrong about that. I honestly do not know for sure. So we'll just kind of have to take it as it goes in regards to that. And I don't know anyone else. I believe this is a 3D animation. And that's about all I know. Like, I was never like super invested in seeing this movie. But it seemed interesting enough to want to check out. So I'm okay with seeing it. It's just, it was never like high on my list. But I guess we'll see what we have in store. So let's just get this going, find out what this movie's about. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, I looked some things up in between the reaction and now, and apparently a sequel, in fact 2 sequels, were planned after this film came out in 2011. But they've been stuck in development hell. Apparently the actors for Haddock and Tintin want to return still, and Peter Jackson is still involved. And the plan is still to have it happen. But it's kind of stuck in development hell, and really no one knows what's happening with it at this point. Which sucks, because this was a really good movie, actually. Like, it started off a little slow, but once it got going, it, as I said in the reaction, reminded me of Indiana Jones. Because with Indiana Jones, he's a, oh god, what is it? Archaeologist and professor, I believe. And he goes on these adventures to protect and preserve these treasures, these ancient treasures. And in here, instead of like an archaeologist and professor, young Tintin is a young reporter. And he's kind of doing the same thing, though. He's going on these adventures to find and preserve these treasures. And as well as find out, the stories about them and be able to report on them to get the word out there so that people just know about this kind of stuff. So it very much gives me the same vibes. Even a lot of the action and everything kind of reads as Indiana Jones to me. Locations and whatnot, the kind of history that goes along with it. Though Indiana Jones touches on some different topics in that regard with more like real mythologies and all. Um, while this one kind of makes up its own mythologies and histories and all, which is fine, completely fine. Um, I really like the animation. Like, it took me a little bit to get like on board with it because at first it's like it was a little not off, but just not quite what I expected. So it took me a little bit to get really on board with it, but once I did, it's like I was fully in. It moved really well. This was done by motion capture, and you can tell that this was motion capture, and I think it really was handled well. Um, Andy Serkis is like a master at mocap, and you can definitely tell he was definitely the best with the physical acting and everything. Um, but he's so used to it because by the point this movie came out, he had already done Lord of the Rings. He had did Peter Jackson's King Kong. So he was pretty well known at that point for his mocap work. So having him play Haddock was a great idea. Also, apparently, I found out speaking of actors and like just being in the film and everything. Just a little fun thing I found out when looking things up in between. One of the seaplane pilots that they stole the plane from before crashing the Sahara was apparently voiced by Cary Elwes from Saw. He was in Princess Bride. He actually had a role in the TV series Psych and various other things. He's a pretty well-known actor. But Cary Elwes, he apparently voiced one of them, and he actually practically begged Peter Jackson to be in the film because he's a massive Tintin fan, a massive fan of the original comic books, and I think that's freaking amazing. And apparently Peter Jackson let him be in it because he appreciated his passion for it. But he was given a smaller role just because, most of the roles had been cast. I just think that's a really awesome fun fact about this film. Um, the characters were really good in this. I liked Tintin and Haddock. They had amazing chemistry. They worked really well with each other. Jamie Bell, I believe, is the actor who played Tintin. He and Andy Serkis worked excellently off of each other. Um, then we had Daniel Craig as the villain as Sakharine. Well, and the pirate from the past, obviously. Um, I would not have guessed that was Daniel Craig, but he did a fantastic job as well. Um, from what I read, he was kind of portrayed as a champagne villain, basically referencing his elegance, eloquence, and just overall fancy like style and everything. And I would very much agree with that. He 100% was. Um, he definitely had this eloquence to him that definitely gave him that kind of archetype. Um, he was a really interesting villain. Apparently, in the comic books, he's not as major of a character, from what I've read. Um, but they kind of elevated him to the main villain for this. So that's interesting. Um, but yeah, that's really interesting. I like the story, like the general idea of like trying to find this kind of pirate treasure and follow these clues, find the clues with these model ships of an old real ship called the Unicorn and everything. I think it was a great idea. Apparently, this was based off of three different comic books in the Tintin series. So apparently, I guess the Tintin comics have like ongoing stories and narratives. I don't know exactly how they work. Again, I think I've read like a little bit of Tintin when I was younger, but it would have been a long time ago, and I don't remember much of anything from them. Um, there was some really good comedy in this too. Obviously, the physical comedy with Andy Serkis playing Haddock, and just the writing involved with that character too. The bumbling Interpol agents were really funny too. Like they usually those kind of characters are very hit or miss for me, but these two were actually a hit. Like they very much did make it work. And I think Simon Pegg and Nick Frost's performances as them were the reason. Like those two are very great comedic actors. They've always been, and they work so excellently off of each other that they're practically. It's like they're two of those actors who are just completely known for working with each other. Let's be honest. From like movies like Shaun of the Dead and whatnot, it's like you expect them to be together. And they're both fantastic, and they did a great job here. Um, and I liked the mystery aspect of it, trying to put everything together. And yeah, there were some things that were very obvious. There were some things that you could see coming a mile away. Um, but I like that the reveals were still done in a very grand way. So it's like whether you figured it out or not, you still feel like it was worth it to get into this. You never feel like it just felt too unenjoyable because you knew what was going to happen. You felt almost proud that you figured it out. So yeah, I really liked that. I think it just really worked on mostly all levels. I can't really think of any huge issues I have with it. Again, apart from the beginning being a little slow, but that's not too big of an issue for me. I'm not too worried about that. There was that B plot with the pickpocket that almost seemed unimportant. But I mean, it was still funny and interesting, and Toby Jones did a great job as the pickpocket guy, Mr. Silk, I think his name was. So I don't mind it. It just felt kind of a little random, a little unnecessary, but it did help, I guess, keep the full answer away from Tintin a little longer and everything, with him having lost that note and everything. So yeah, I guess it worked out. Um, and just all in all, I really hope that they one day are able to get this sequel off the ground, because it's been 10 years since this movie came out, and it deserves a sequel. It's one of those films that's really good. Apparently, it did pretty well. Like, people seem to like it. It got like 70 something on Rotten Tomatoes, which I don't really count Rotten Tomatoes as a great source, because people will review bomb shit on there and will act really fucking high and mighty. So I tend to take everything on Rotten Tomatoes with a grain of salt, as anyone should. But the fact is, people do seem to like this film from what I've seen of just the general consensus based on what I looked up. I didn't look up too much. I didn't actually watch any reviews or anything in between. But yeah, I'm going to. I'm definitely going to check out some reviews and see what people specifically had to think. I think it was a really good film. I really did end up liking it. And I went into this thinking it was going to be more of a family film, but honestly, it really wasn't. Like, like you almost kind of think it would be. There is some humor in it that's kind of childish and family friendly and everything. But then it's very heavy with talking about killing people, with people actually being killed, with a lot of discussion on alcoholism and whatnot. and various other things like that. It's actually very adult. It's a very mature film that doesn't just try to like pander to kids or anything. Like even Snowy, who could have very easily just been in another he could have very easily been another annoying animal sidekick character. But no, instead Snowy was useful, not annoying, never overbearing, and he never felt like he was just there to entertain the kids. He felt like he had a role to play. He was very helpful, and there were some great scenes involving him, such as the chase with the falcon. Um, I think that this film maybe doesn't do or didn't do as well as some other animated movies out there, and maybe that's part of why it's stuck in development hell, because it's not pandering to kids, because it's not a family friendly all ages movie. There back in those days, back like a decade ago, and even now, there are so many people who still think animation is just a thing for kids, and think that when an animated movie comes out, it has to be, for kids. And that's just not the case. Some of the best animated movies out there are very adult in nature. You watch movies like the Hayao Miyazaki Studio Ghibli films. Hell, one of the best animated movies out there, Into the Spider-Verse, is very much not a kid's film. Just because it's animated. It's very much not for kids. Kids can probably watch it without too much issue, but it's very much not a kid's movie. But I think that movies that are like that, unless they're so exceptionally good that like people really can't like really argue against them with any sense of validity, like Spider-Verse, unless they're like that good, animated movies like this that are more like PG-13 rated or whatnot, or seem like they would be for kids, if they are more mature, they tend to be looked down on or seen as lesser in some ways. And it's really disappointing, because it's like you'll see movies like Frozen and whatnot get these amazing accolades and get sequels and spin-offs and whatnot. And hell, I like Frozen. I'm completely fine with that, with it getting a sequel and spin-offs and shorts and all. That's fine. But then you have movies like this that suffer because of that, because they don't live up to like those kinds of Disney films and all, because they tackle more mature subjects in more mature ways, and they aren't just all kiddie and silly and have these goofy animal sidekicks and shit. Those goofy animal sidekicks, or just goofy sidekick characters in general, that half the time ruin the movie, or at least hurt it. I mean, the gargoyles were the worst part of Hunchback of Notre Dame. Olaf is the worst part of Frozen. The little chameleon guy, Pascal, I believe is his name, is the worst part of Tangled. The worst part of all these movies is the little sidekick character. And it's like, yet they still market those so heavily. Because they assume kids can't enjoy a movie unless they have that. And it's dumb. But I'm glad that this movie didn't kind of bow down to those kind of ideas, and just I'm glad it stuck to more mature themes and ideas, and kept to its roots material, I assume. But either way, I very much, like I said, enjoyed this. It wasn't my favorite movie I've seen by any means, but I did very much enjoy it. So let me know down in the comments below, what did you think of the adventures of Tintin? Let me know if you liked it as much as I did, or even more, or if you didn't like it as much as I did. And thank you once again to Random Internet Stranger for donating for this. If you or anyone else wishes to donate for a future reaction, movie, series, or otherwise, you can do so. Just contact me in the comments below or on the Discord or other social media or whatever, and we can work out all of that. Any donation of any amount gets you a reward. You don't have to donate a lot, and if you can't or don't want to donate, you don't have to. It's completely optional. And during these times with COVID still going on, it's very understandable if you're not able to. I will not hold that against anyone. It's completely optional, just adds another thing to react to on the channel, some more content to give to you. And no matter what, you'll always get all the content anyways. You always get to see everything anyways. So that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.